Hello and welcome to this tutorial of how to complete the Netlab06 SYN flood denial of service attack. Our objective for this lab is to demonstrate how a denial of service attack affects the availability of data. First, open the Kali virtual machine, also known as Kali VM, which is primarily used for cybersecurity testing. Log in as student with the password. So first we'll start by establishing a normal web connection. Open the Kali VM and in the Chrome browser type 192.168.100.200 into the address bar. This IP address belongs to another virtual machine called Metasploitable. Next, leave the browser window open and open the Metasploitable VM. Click on the screen to focus and log in with msfadmin as the username and password. Now let's monitor the network connection. Type in netstat-atn pipe less and press enter. Now getting into the details of this command, netstat is a command line tool that displays network connections, routing tables, and a number of network interface and network protocol statistics. Think of this as a detective that tells you what's happening with connections to and from your computer. The -A in ATN tells netstat to display all active connections. The T tells netstat to display all TCP connections, which are messages that go back and forth between the connections. And then the letter N tells netstat to display the addresses and port numbers in numerical form instead of translating the specific numbers into names. The little pipe line is used to pass the output of one command as the input into another command. So the output of the netstat command becomes the input of the less command, and the less command formats the data so that it becomes easier to read. So now after clicking enter, we should see a connection with a state of time_wait or established, which we could easily see right here. So this leads us into our first question, which is what is the source IP address for this connection? So the source IP address is also the foreign address, which is what it'll show up as on the table. So now you want to take note of this IP address 192.168.100.103, and you want to take a screenshot of this netstat output, which represents a normal connection state. Next, click Q to exit netstat, and then on Kali VM, close the browser. This concludes part 1 of our lab. Now let's move on to simulating a denial of service attack. Open the Ubuntu VM and log in with the username admin user and the password. Open a terminal and use the hping3 tool to send a flood of SYN packets to the Metasploitable VM by entering this command. Now, as you can see here, I did mess up a little on the first command, but to go into the details of this command, sudo stands for superuser do, and it's used to execute a command with a privilege of the superuser or the root for the system administration tasks. hping3 is a TCP/IP packet assembler and analyzer. It is used to craft packets and can be used as a network's testing tool, which is what we're using it as now. The -- flood flag tells hping3 to send packets as fast as possible, flooding the network. -D200 sets the size of the packets to be 200 bytes each. The -S sets the SYN flag in the packet, which is used to initiate a TCP connection. The -P80 specifies the destination port, which in this case is 80, the standard HTTP port. 192.168.100.200 is the target IP address to which the packets are sent. So after executing, quickly move to Metasploitable and start netstat again. This time you'll see a stream of SYN_recv packets. This means that Metasploitable is getting a lot of connection requests, but they are not being completed, therefore clogging up the network. Now go to your Kali VM and try to open 192.168.100.200 in the browser. This leads us to our next question. Are you able to open the Metasploitable VM's webpage? So now we could clearly see that the page isn't loading. Now what's really happening here is we are sending a large number of SYN packets to a target system from the Ubuntu machine. These are the initial packets used to establish a TCP connection. The target system then responds with a SYN ACK or synchronized acknowledge packet and awaits the final ACK or acknowledge packet to complete the three-way handshake and establish the connection. However, the attacker does not send the ACK packets, causing the target system to use up resources waiting for the responses that never come. This can exhaust the system's resources and make it unresponsive to legitimate traffic, which is what's happening in our situation. Now go back to the Ubuntu VM and stop the attack by pressing Ctrl+C in the terminal. Return to the Kali VM to see that the web page is now loading without any delay. Congratulations, you finished with all of the physical aspects of the lab. Now let's answer some questions. First, which part of the CIA was affected by this SYN flood denial of service attack? So, as the SYN flood attack renders the system unresponsive, it mainly compromises the availability aspect of the CIA triad, making the system unavailable to legitimate users who need access to the resources or services provided by the target system. Now moving on to our second question, what method could be used to mitigate this SYN flood denial of service attack? And one example of this is rate limiting, which is limiting the rate of SYN packets that a server is allowed to receive. This can often be implemented in a firewall or router. It helps in preventing the system from being overwhelmed by the amount of SYN packets since there is a limit on them.